Welcome back, everybody, to day 4 of descriptive statistics. All right, for today, our goal for the day, given a set of data, you will be able to calculate the limits to use to find outliers, and we're going to use those outliers to construct a modified box plot. So the whole idea today are going to be outliers and creating a modified box plot. All right, so let's take a look first at, well, what is an outlier? Well, an outlier is a value that lies outside, which means it's going to be much smaller or much larger than most of the other values in the set of data. So here we could take a look at 2 examples. So if we look at the dot plot, most of our data is clustered together except for this one point that's very far away there. So that's what we would consider to be an outlier. And again, you can see that in a histogram as well. Most of the data is all together except for this one random piece, which would then be a lower outlier. So we're first going to take a look at a very basic and very obvious example. So number 1, below is a set of data on the number of DVDs that students own. So here we have our list of numbers. Do any of these points seem to not fit the data? Yep, it looks like it. There is one point that is very obvious above most of the other pieces of data, which is 62. All right, so what I'd like you to do right now is go ahead, pause the video, and calculate the mean and the median. All right, so let's go ahead and let's see if our values match up. I calculated the mean to be 12.7 and the median to be 5. So let's go ahead and let's take a look. So which is a better center for the data? Well, if I take a look, 12.7, the mean, that's still above most of these values. So I don't think that's going to be a very good center. So the best center here is going to be the median. 5 is definitely where most of the other data lies. So what effect did this outlier do to the mean? Because we see the mean is definitely not a good fit for this data. Well, the outlier is going to skew the mean in the direction that it is. So the outlier will skew, it will skew the mean, which means it's going to increase or decrease the mean value. All right, so now that we've taken a look at a very obvious example, let's see what happens when we actually need to calculate. So sometimes it's not going to be obvious which numbers are our outliers, so we need to be able to calculate to know for sure. So here's our formal algebraic definition of an outlier. An outlier is any data point that is more than 1.5 times the interquartile range, the IQR, below the first quartile or above the third quartile. So the interquartile range, the IQR, is the range from the first quartile to the third quartile. So from one end of the box to the other end of the box, this is what we consider the IQR, the interquartile range. So to calculate your outlier, it's going to be any point below Q1 minus 1.5 times the IQR, and any point above Q3 plus 1.5 times the interquartile range. Now, if we find that we have outliers, what we're going to do to our box plot is we're going to modify it by making the outliers dots and then changing your min and your max. All right, so let's take a look and let's actually try calculating our outliers. All right, so here's our first example. The following are the scores of 13 members of the women's golf team in tournament play. So if we take a look, our numbers range from 89, 90. If we take a look, we have 111. So do your data points look like they're very spread out? Okay, they don't look too spread out, but we need to know for sure. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to follow the steps below to check for any outliers and then draw a modified box plot. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to calculate our 5-point summary. So to do that, in your calculators, you're going to go to Stat, Edit, which is choice 1. And we're going to input all of our pieces of data, which I have right in here already. Then we hit Stat, Calculate in one variable stat, which is choice 1. I'm then going to use my down arrows to find my 5-number summary. So based off of the calculator, we have a minimum of 79, a Q1 of 84.5, a median of 88, Q3 is 93, and our maximum is 111. So the next step is to calculate our interquartile range. So the interquartile range is Q3 minus Q1. So let's go ahead and let's input that. So Q3 is 93 minus Q1 is 94.5. So let's go ahead and subtract that. 93 minus 84.5, and we get 8.5. And this is your IQR. All right, now we can go ahead and determine the outlier boundaries. So the lower boundary is going to be Q1 minus 1.5 times the IQR. So let's go ahead and let's input those values. So that's going to be 84.5 minus 1.5 times the interquartile range, which we just found to be 8.5. So let's go ahead and let's put that in the calculator. 84.5 minus 1.5 times 8.5. And we get 71.74. So any score that's below 71.75 is going to be our lower outlier. Now let's go ahead and let's find our upper boundary. So the upper boundary is going to be Q3 plus 1.5 times the IQR. So when we input that, it's going to be our Q3 is 93 minus 1.5 times 8.5, which is our IQR. Oops, but we're going to be adding those together this time because we want the upper, so we want it to be above. So let's go ahead now in the calculator. 93 plus 1.5 times 8.5. We get 105.75. So anything above 105.75 is going to be an upper outlier. So now let's go take a look at our values. Let's determine any of the outliers. So are any of our values here less than 71.75? Nope, our minimum is actually 79, so we know there's nothing above or below that. So now let's check. Do we have any values above 105.75? Well, I see for sure we have one, 111. We also have another one at 108. So 111 and 108 are our outliers. So now that we have outliers, we have to readjust our 5-number summary. So if it's not an outlier, well, first we're going to put our outliers over here. So 111 and 108. Then, as long as our values in our 5-number summary are not an outlier, they're going to remain the same. So 79 is going to remain our minimum. Our Q1 is still 84.5. Our median is still 88, 93, but now we have to find a new maximum. So we're going to go back up to our data. What's the next highest number below that outlier of 108? So now our new maximum is going to be, I believe it's right here, 95. All right, so now that we have our new 5-number summary, we can go ahead and create our modified box plot. So for the modified box plot, the outliers are going to be just little stars or little dots. So 111, okay, and 109. So those are your outliers. Now we're going to draw our box plot. So 79 is my minimum, 84.5, 88, 93, and 95. Okay, then I can connect my whiskers, as you want to call them, box and whiskers. So here are our whiskers. And then I can draw my lines for my box and connect those up. Okay, we want to make sure that we title it. These are your golf scores. And we now have our modified box plot because we have the box plot with the modifications that are made to create your outliers. All right, ladies and gentlemen, our goal today was to be able to calculate outliers and create a modified box plot. We've just done that. All right, good job today.